In the grimdark future of Warhammer 40k, the soul is not a comforting afterthought. It's not an abstract metaphysical idea or some poetic symbol of selfhood. It's a resource, a weapon, a curse. In this universe, your soul is real, measurably so, and it matters far more than your flesh ever did. It shapes how you interact with the warp, how you die, and what happens to you after death, if anything happens at all. It can be consumed, stored, tormented, or destroyed. It can also betray you. Across the galaxy, souls power ancient technologies, bind demons to reality, and fuel the godlike engines of faith and heresy alike. For Chaos, the soul is a banquet. For Psychers, it's both a lifeline and a vulnerability. And for the Empyrean, it's a liability waiting to be audited. Some souls shine brightly enough to shift the tides of reality. Others flicker like dying embers and are snuffed out just as easily. But even the smallest soul, when twisted by belief or trauma, can leave an echo that echoes across eternity. In short, the soul is not just part of you. In many ways, it is you. And that's the real horror. Because in a galaxy, this predatory, being real, is a death sentence. What you are is not sacred. It's usable, maybe even harvestable. If you're lucky, your soul gets devoured quickly. If you're not, it lingers in the warp forever, screaming. Or worse, gets recycled. So before we start asking whether the Empyrean is good or evil, or whether chaos corrupts or just reveals, ask yourself one thing. In this universe, what happens to your soul? Souls are psychic in nature, intrinsically tied to the warp. They are not only proof of sentience, but often the very fuel of it. And just like everything else in this universe, they are subject to hierarchy, mutation, weaponization, and obliteration. The soul is shaped by emotion and belief. Every thought, prayer, and scream etches itself into the warp, and the more powerful or passionate a being is, the more potent that imprint becomes. Human souls burn dimly, but uniquely. Many weak, some bright, and a few so incandescent they flare like beacons in the warp. Eldari souls are refined and rich, which is exactly why Slaanesh is obsessed with them. Orcs, meanwhile, operate on collective Gestalt soul energy, individually dim but terrifying in numbers. And then there are the Necrons, whose original souls were ripped out and caged within cold, artificial husks. What remains of them is debatable. Are they echoes, fragments, or just empty armor, pretending to remember what being alive felt like? Some beings don't have a soul at all, like blanks or pariahs. Their very presence is offensive to warp-based life. They nullify psychic energy and cause instinctive revulsion in everyone around them. To demons, blanks are like dead zones, unchartable, unreadable, unkillable in any conventional way. It's not just absence, it's anti-presence. But there's also nuance here. Some souls linger after death, leaving psychic residues or soul echoes that can haunt machines, locations, or people. These echoes can be manipulated, bound, or even mistaken for the real thing. So what is a soul, really? It's your presence in the immaterium, your emotional fingerprint, your spiritual ID card. It can be bright or dim, damaged or stolen, feared or worshipped. But it is never safe. Not in a galaxy where even your death might not be enough to stop something from using you again. Souls are many things: identity, essence, weapon, but above all, they are fuel. The galaxy runs on souls, not just spiritually, but literally. They are a tradable commodity, a combustible substance, a bribe, a punishment, and a power source, all rolled into one. If you have a soul in 40,000, Congratulations, you're valuable. And that's probably very bad news. For the Chaos gods, souls are currency and sustenance in equal measure. Every sacrifice, every prayer, every moment of unchecked emotion feeds them. A demon might be paid in souls for services rendered, or barter one soul for another in the infernal marketplaces of the warp. In summoning rituals, a sorcerer might burn hundreds of lives to call forth a single greater demon, and that's considered a fair exchange. For the gods, it's not the death that matters. It's the passion, the belief, the torment. Slaanesh wants ecstasy and agony. Khorne wants rage and bloodlust. Nurgle savors despair. Tzeentch collects hope and betrayal like a miser. Souls are food, fuel, and record-keeping all at once. But Chaos isn't the only player in this sick economy. The Eldari use soul stones to trap their spirits at death, keeping them safe from Slaanesh's hunger. These stones are stored in their craft worlds or used to animate wraithbone constructs, dead warriors brought back as semi-conscious golems, still fueled by their soul echo. On the darker end of the spectrum, the Dark Mechanicum literally soul-forge their constructs, binding damned or broken souls into machines to grant them rudimentary consciousness or unending torment. The result is a sentient weapon that screams as it kills, both metaphorically and literally. You don't pilot the tank, you chain a soul to the engine and let it scream its way across the battlefield. Even the Empyrean is not above this grim calculus. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica selects thousands of psychers to be sacrificed every day, their souls fed into the ravenous golden throne to keep the Emperor alive and the Astronomicon lit. These aren't just bodies, they're psychic batteries, their essences consumed to maintain humanity's fragile link to warp navigation. This is all publicly justified as a noble sacrifice, though nobody ever volunteers. When every major power in the galaxy is fighting over your soul like it's a bargaining chip, it's fair to ask, is anyone actually the good guy here? The Imperium of Man prides itself on resisting the evils of chaos, but when it comes to the soul economy, the difference is mostly in branding. Chaos demands souls for dark gods. The Imperium feeds them to a dying corpse on a throne. Both demand obedience, sacrifice, and absolute belief. One just uses better paperwork. The sheer casualness with which souls are weaponized reveals something deeply unsettling about sentient life in the 41st millennium. It has become completely commodified. Souls are no longer sacred. They're tools, taxes, weapons, and raw materials. A psyker is valued not for who they are, but for how many months they'll power the Astronomicon before being reduced to dust. A martyr's soul becomes propaganda. A demon host's soul is shackled for interrogation. Even something as sacred as death is no longer yours. It belongs to whoever claimed your soul first. And yet, this isn't nihilism, it's doctrine. Within the Imperium, the fate of the soul becomes its own reward or punishment. Saints are souls so radiant they shine in the warp, shielding others from corruption. Heretics are damned because their souls rot with forbidden knowledge. Martyrs are fuel for faith. In this system, your only escape from damnation is to become useful, either in death or devotion. But whether you burn in the warp or blaze in the Emperor's light, the outcome is the same. You're still burning. There is no meaningful distinction between salvation and annihilation in this universe, only which institution gets to dictate what your soul is worth. If souls are the lifeblood of the galaxy, then what happens when you don't have one? In the grim calculus of Warhammer 40,000, being soulless isn't just a medical condition, it's metaphysical exile. Blanks, or pariahs, are humans born without any warp signature at all. To normal people, they feel wrong. Their presence is nauseating, their touch is unsettling, and standing near them for too long can cause headaches, irrational fear, or even hallucinations. To psychers, their mere existence is unbearable, like standing in a spiritual vacuum that chokes the soul. The warp, a sea of emotion and spiritual resonance, recoils from the presence of blanks. Where most sentient life leaves ripples, blanks leave scars. This makes them valuable to the Empyrean, specifically to the Officio Assassinorum, which trains them as Culexus assassins. These agents are walking null zones, erasing psychic power around them and disrupting demonic manifestations. To demons, a pariah isn't just a threat, it's an existential insult. They don't understand how such a being can exist, and they fear it. The warp hates them not just for what they are, but for what they represent: pure, spiritual silence. Then there are the Necrons, a species that didn't just lose their souls, they had them stolen. Once known as the Necrontyr, they lived on a blasted, irradiated world where their lifespans were brutally short and racked with suffering. Desperate for a solution, they turned to the mysterious star gods known as the Satan. These entities promised them immortality and delivered it in the most horrifying way possible. The Necrontyr were tricked into a mass ritual of biotransference, their souls consumed by the Satan while their minds were imprisoned in cold necrodermis shells. The result was eternal life without meaning. The Necrons became undying machines, stripped of sensation, emotion, and identity. Only a rare few retained their personalities, lords and cryptex who live in constant torment, aware of all they've lost, but unable to truly feel it. For the rest, consciousness flickers like a broken light. Fragments of memory, the ghost of rage, an echo of pain, but nothing that could be called selfhood. They are not just soulless in a metaphysical sense. They are hollowed-out relics of what they once were. When a being dies, especially a sentient one with a warp presence, their soul doesn't simply vanish. It bleeds into the warp, a psychic afterimage that becomes food, fuel, or fodder. Every emotion a person ever felt, every fear, regret, and memory becomes part of the Immaterium's roiling tide. To die in the 41st millennium is to be unmade, or worse, to linger as prey in a place without time or mercy. The warp is not the afterlife, it's the digestive system of gods, and most souls are little more than calories. Human souls, on average, are weak, fragmentary. They lack the concentrated spiritual density of more ancient races. Most humans die and are immediately consumed by predators of the warp. Less an ascension, more a slow dissolve in screaming unreality. Eldari souls, in contrast, are rich beyond measure. They burn bright with psychic potential, which is why Slanesh stalks them with ravenous hunger. The Eldari created a god with their collective emotions, and now they suffer for it eternally. Hence the Soul Stones, devices meant to trap their souls and protect them from eternal torment, turning what should be a natural end into a desperate game of keep away with a cosmic devourer. But not all souls are equal or equally doomed. Some seem to persist. There are whispers of reincarnation, of souls too potent to be digested. The Emperor's soul, for example, may have passed through death and returned. His essence, vast and terrible, appears to grow stronger with every year he spends on the Golden Throne, possibly anchored by the faith of billions. Then there's the Perpetuals, a branch of humanity that seems to possess the power to eternally regenerate. Perpetuals are able to fully heal, even from total bodily destruction, their souls escaping into the warp, where they seem to reform their bodies using their powerful souls as a blueprint. Nobody really knows why they are capable of this or how they accomplish it, but it seems to be an inherent quality of their soul. In Warhammer 40k, the soul isn't just spiritual garnish, it's a weapon of horrifying potential. When bound to a powerful psyche, it can punch holes in reality, incinerate minds, and tear thoughts out of existence. Psykers, sanctioned or otherwise, are proof of this. Their souls act as conduits to the warp, the Empyrean responding to their will, emotion, and instability. In a galaxy built on violence, the soul becomes another kind of ammunition, one that can either protect worlds or doom them. And make no mistake, most of them burn out long before they grow strong enough to matter. Possession is one of the most common expressions of the soul's vulnerability. A weak soul is like a torn screen door. Anything can crawl in. Demons prize hosts with psychic talent, but anyone with a fractured mind or a moment of spiritual weakness can be cracked open. But on the flip side, a strong soul, especially one forged in faith, discipline, or raw power, can bind that demon instead. Sorcerers of the dark gods use soul binding to enslave warp entities, chaining them into weapons, armor, or even their own bodies. The Empyrean does this too, though more covertly, with sanctioned bindings, like those used to anchor navigators or reinforce astropaths. In every case, it's a battle of will, soul versus soul, and only one can wear the skin. Then there's the apocalyptic endgame, soul-based weapons. There are instances, rare and whispered, of weapons fueled by soul energy, devices powered by raw psychic essence, even warheads built around bound warp entities. These so-called soul bombs don't just kill, they erase. Even within sanctioned channels, the Adeptus Astra Telepathica's experiments skirt this line, where psykers are pushed until they combust, or their minds are forcibly detonated in acts of spiritual warfare. Whether you burn from within or ascend into demonhood, the determining factor is always the same: the strength and shape of your soul. Weak ones die screaming, strong ones die louder, or become something far worse. The soul isn't a comforting afterthought or a metaphysical flourish, it's everything. It is your identity, your power, your curse. It can be harvested like wheat, sold like scrap, consumed like fuel, or shattered like glass. Entire factions are built on manipulating the soul, and unlike your body, your soul has no expiry date, just a long shelf life of potential suffering. This universe doesn't give you the luxury of thinking your soul is safe. It is the most valuable thing you'll ever have, which makes it everyone's favorite target. You might be born with one, but you won't necessarily die with it. Whether you're burned in a ritual, locked in a machine, eaten by a warp predator, or just quietly absorbed into the Emperor's divine light, the end is never peaceful. Even oblivion isn't guaranteed, not when gods, machines, and monsters are all bidding on what little remains of you. So the real question is this: in a galaxy where your soul is currency, food, and firepower, what happens to yours? Let me know in the comments. And while you still have a body to click with, don't forget to like and subscribe before the warp comes calling. That's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next one.